That's carried. The next item is the draft submission on Environment Canterbury's long-term plan. And staff have added some additional text to address the points that we have been discussing both here at the meeting in relation to clean air and in terms of strengthening the wording, also strengthening the wording around nitrates and groundwater, and also at my request an additional wording about the free shuttle, because the free shuttle is something that our own residents have raised time and time again. We've tried to get it included within the regional public transport plan. It is there, but there is this sense that it's the chicken and egg. They say that it needs to come after the buildings are built, and we're saying no, actually it needs to be there now, because that idea of making it easy to get around in the central city and filling that sort of bit of a gap in the donut would certainly help as well. So we've got this. Do we want to go through, perhaps if I just hand over to staff and you talk about the changes, because everyone has seen the...
And thank you for such a speedy turnaround.
Yes.
That's no trouble. If I'd known you were going to put it on the screen, I would have tidied it up a little bit more in the 5 minutes that we were frantically working on.
It just shows how quickly you've worked.
But to deal with the nitrate issue first, at the top of the screen you can see the existing paragraph 18, and then the suggestion is that we strengthen that by adding in the middle of the paragraph that we are concerned to see, rather than simply noting the emerging trend of rising concentrations. And then at the end, we welcome clarification of the Regional Council strategy for addressing this emerging trend. And then finally, we suggest that increased monitoring would be clearly required once nitrate levels approach 50% of that maximum acceptable value. And that wording at the very end makes the point that the MAV is set in terms of short-term exposure, and it's not a level that considers what happens if you're exposed over the long term. So there's sort of options in there for how sort of strong you want this paragraph to be in terms of raising these issues with ECAN.
Right, Sarah? Oh, no, you're not Sarah, you're Pauline.
Thank you. I think we need to be really strong. My concern is that we do have a New Zealand study going on at the moment on the maximum allowable level being different from that set by WHO and a lot of research. So I'm wondering if we could put something in about ECAN being flexible about emerging evidence as it emerges around the lowering of the maximum allowable value, because we keep referring to WHO there, and that is extremely high, and we know that, particularly when you see evidence on the macroinvertebrates, which is down around 1.3. I think we're still sitting looking at 50% of the MAV is still too high as far as we're concerned. If we could find some wording about ECAN being flexible around changing standards or levels.
We have got this advice also from Three Waters, so we're just thinking about whether that's actually in the drinking water standards. So we just need to check that with Helen, but we can certainly put something in there about flexibility.
I think it might be a
responding
good idea.
to future changes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And that is what we've discussed. It's about making sure that we're informed by that emerging research and responsive and flexible to that, so we can.
Because 50% of the value now at 11.3 is what, 6.75 or something, which is ridiculously high. Still,
But
So-
I mean, we're in the right space, so,
Yeah.
I mean, we can get the sign off of the final detail of the wording. We don't need to wordsmith it here. I would like to change the words as set for short-term exposure to has been established based on acute exposure. So, you know, there's some technical tidy up that I'd just like to
Absolutely,
see.
yeah, and
but-
we've sort of just been circulating it around Diane and Sarah
Yeah.
to make sure that we've got that really accurate.
We'll just get the wording tidied
Yeah.
up. So I don't,
Yeah,
I
send it
think
around.
that generally people are comfortable with the proposed changes
Yeah.
in a general sense, and I
timing.
think the wording is sufficient for us to tidy up the wording before it, we go back to the resolution.
Do you want to deal with the other two bits, or do
Sorry?
you want to deal with the other elements as
Yeah,
well?
you will deal with,
Yeah, paragraph 5,
um,
etc.
oh yes, no,
Yeah.
paragraph, we'll run through
No.
the res, sorry,
Run
carry
through
on.
the rest, Joe.
So just a,
Stop.
the paragraph about the free,
Yeah. Did you want me to comment on that? So this is another bit I would have tidied up if I'd known it was going on the screen. Our initial suggestion, I guess, is just to add those red words to the end of existing paragraph 5 to say, in addition, we support further work on the affordability of public transport as part of the review of bus fares, including consideration of free services.
But we're after the shuttle in the central city. It's the central city shuttle. So
Right.
if we could just put
Okay.
and the reinstatement of the free central city shuttle, that will,
Okay.
that will do. So yeah,
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand.
no, and the clean air.
So we understand that was raised in the public forum and wanted to point out the strengthened wording that we added to paragraph 32 following the staff briefing on the 26th of March when we met with councillors to discuss the draft submission. The feedback we had then was that paragraph wasn't strong enough, and so we've added the red wording in there to the draft that you have attached to the report.
Right, so that people are generally comfortable with the change in direction there. And Yanni?
I mean, given what we heard this morning, and I mean, I was kind of under the impression ECAM were doing more in that quarry space, but I think what we heard this morning is there's still huge gaps. So I was a bit concerned with we support the steps they've taken to improve monitoring around air quality around quarries. I just don't know how robust what they're currently doing is, and thought we may want to be stronger, particularly around that. But I mean, I think fundamentally, we do want to support a level of service so that people can see what the expected response time would be if they do log those complaints. And it's not just quarries; it is dust as well. And I know there's been some concern, but I just also wanted to check on the free shuttle, because previously we've been advised that we cannot be anti-competitive with existing contract providers. So we can't run a service that's free where companies have contracts to deliver bus services.
We can run where there's no service.
Yeah, so where there's no service, but
The
obviously
shuttle.
the bus routes have changed quite significantly.
Wouldn't that be for ECAM to respond, wouldn't it?
Yanni, the shuttle doesn't run on an existing bus route.
Sorry, Manchester Street is the key bus corridor
It
now.
doesn't have to go on Manchester
It didn't
Street.
used to
I'm
be.
just saying, reinstate the shuttle. It's not a scheduled service.
I
So
just
that-
wonder, like, I support
Look,
the...
I've read the Act, Yanni, it doesn't,
Right.
it complies,
Okay,
alright?
that's good, because when we tried to get an east-west one, we were repeatedly told that we couldn't do it because of that. But,
Correct.
I mean, just
Because they
the
have
only...
scheduled services running east to west, so
Well, they have
carry
it
on.
north-south as well. But the other thing, just in that regard, is when we were doing the car parking policy strategy, the idea of, for example, free buses within the 4AVs, like a zone 0. So I didn't want to rule out that option as well, because I think both deserve to be looked at, but can we make it a little bit wider just to include the ability for people just to get on the bus within the, go travel within the 4AVs?
That's what it means.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it might be a better way of doing it, but we'd obviously need to get advice on that. But
So we're generally comfortable with the direction of it. We can wordsmith the final sign-off, and if you want to change it so that the final wording agreed between the Mayor and Chief Executive, I mean, we'll just get advice on it, but we'll just sign off the final wording. And the second question is does the council want this to be heard, and do they want the council to present the submission to ECAN, or are they quite happy that we just forward the submission to them? Just forward it to them? Yep. Well, that's the thing, is that are we going to agree that it be heard in support of its submission? So
I think we should be heard.
okay, so Andrew, are you happy to move the approval and agree that it be heard and support and delegate? Oh, you can't move it because it says the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to determine representation. Pauline, move it. Seconded by Melanie. Okay, Aaron.
Yeah, just the only question I had when I went through the whole thing was, why did we not mention the incredible rates rise?
Do you mean the 24% rise?
We don't talk about the golden elephant in the room.
24% of a very small base. It's smaller than average.
24% is 24%.
But that's like saying that our council's budget's tiny compared to the government, so we just
Sorry,
put
I
our rates
wasn't
up as
at
much
the
as we
meeting
want.
where this was discussed, but I think
No.
that it was made relatively clear that there was to be a focus on the issues.
That is an issue, because that's about the only thing that's been raised with me by members of the public is,
Yes,
oh my
I've read your
goodness.
post.
And have you told
It's
them the
not-
actual
it's not a
correct
question.
information or the misinformation?
It's not a question. I mean, the
No, it was the
real
right amount,
the
Mike.
issues are in relation to the to what they are doing. So it's the programs of work. So as I understood, councillors were quite comfortable with going down that track. If you want to, yeah.
I've got some wording, Leanne, I could send through. We can just add that in.
I'm sorry, but some councillors here who are not happy with this were not at the workshop, and so if they were not at the workshop, that's your problem. I don't care.
Yes, we had a workshop with ECAN to discuss the
I was
issues
at
with
that.
them. I wasn't at it, so.
And I can comment. I mean, I led the pre-discussion before we met with the ECAN governors, where everybody was comfortable that we wouldn't comment on the rates rise. And certainly that was the basis of the discussion with the ECAN governors. And even though there was some discussion in that forum, the result was that the people in the people in the room were comfortable that we wouldn't make comment on the rates rise. And there was interesting information that was given by the ECAN governors at that meeting around the rates rise and the effect on Christchurch residents versus the figure which has seen so much attention in the media.
I've just sent through to Joe some wording potentially we could look to include.
Okay, well, that can be put up as an amendment, so, sorry? Yep.
Thanks so much. I'm just thinking about the types of things that we have put in our submission about the outcomes that we're seeking and the issues that we've raised. Is the work that we have asked to be done and the focus that we have asked for from ECAN, which tends to be additional work, is that likely to be consistent with a lower rates increase when we've been asking for additional work?
Can we see what I've got?
It's a question for staff, actually. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, but it would answer your question really easily. Yeah.
I've asked staff.
You usually ask for the staff, answer for the staff.
So Sarah, the question is that the feedback we've provided, would that result in a lower rate?
No,
Is
you
it
can't answer
consistent?
that question.
No.
The staff
They-
can't
they-
answer that
that
question
these-
because they're obviously going to do, as we are going to do, a juggling exercise. After we've listened to submissions, the reason that I don't support us making a submission on the rates rise, but I do around the technical detail, and I would have been quite happy for this merely to have been submitted, but that's by the by. The real reason that I don't agree with us doing that is that is an issue that will be discussed with ECAN as a matter of course after hearing submissions from the residents who are going to be asked to make that. make those payments of their rates. And so why should we collectively, a group of individual ratepayers, which is what we would be here, make a submission on that subject here? I mean, the reality is that we can't represent the view of the city, or even an understanding of the view of the city, given that there's going to be a juggling act made at the end about what
And
the
mine's
rates
up on the screen
implications
too
will
now,
be.
if that helps. So if it's easy to put it as amendment, and then if it gets lost, it gets lost.
No, it's
No,
an
you can
amendment.
move an amendment, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
We're concerned by the proposed rate increases across the region, noting that this will vary by rateable unit. We would request that as elected members you direct Environment Canterbury staff to reduce this additional rating burden by finding further operational savings. We believe a significant reduction in this increase would demonstrate a
It's
fiscal...
not really our
return.
role to talk about the rest of the region, though.
Yeah, it is
our
an
role.
amendment, but
It's very rude.
well, no, but it is actually... It's not an appropriate amendment. It's actually not appropriate
24.5%
for us
increase
as a
is rude.
council to make a submission on this point when they are out hearing directly from their residents right across the region, as we are for ours. There will be a juggling act that will happen at the end of it, where essentially the weight of submissions will be considered. People will look through all of the issues. I mean, if this simply said that we note that all of us are operating at times of that require fiscal restraint due to the challenges that we all face, then I'm good with that. But I think asking the Environment Canterbury members to do this in the context of the broader responsibilities, I just don't think that it's
It's
right.
not our role to speak on behalf of the rest of Canterbury, just for our residents.
We
Can't be concerned about stuff across the region. We're only concerned about our stuff.
Anyway, I don't know. Look, I'm going to adjourn this item, and I'm going to take advice as to the legality and appropriateness of
Within
the
Might not be within order.
of the amendment. I don't care. I want legal advice. I want proper advice as to the nature of this amendment, because I believe that we are not, under the Local Government Act, able to actually put that amendment to the council today. So if I could just, I think I'll just move on to the next item on the agenda. I'll just let this lie on the table until we get, I'm just going to adjourn this item and come back to it